Hello there, my name is Amy Kinsman and I'm a Careers and Employability Consultant at the University of Stirling, and today I'm going to give you a presentation on social media and online networks and how to build a social media account and online networks to make you stand out in the job market. So after this session, you'll be able to understand the importance of social media and online networking. You'll be able to create a professional LinkedIn profile that stands out within the job market and be able to access other resources for your career development. So when we think about entering into the employment market, there is what we call sort of two ways about going into the employment market. The first one being a sort of method in which is reactive, and that's looking at job vacancies that are live, which you can see. The only thing with that is it can be highly competitive and very stressful getting into the job market by applying for vacancies that are live on job boards. There is the other way of going into the job market, and that's being in a proactive state. So that's thinking about job opportunities within the market that are actually hidden opportunities, and this is what we call the hidden job market. So with the hidden job market, the opportunities obviously aren't advertised, so that it requires you to be proactive in thinking about how can I actually get to know about these opportunities. And that's where online networking comes into play. Networking is a really important way if you want to actually be able to access opportunities that are in the hidden job market. So when we think about networking and the definitions of networking, there are sort of three definitions. So within that, there's the Collins Dictionary definition, and thinking network is the process of trying to meet new people who might be useful to you in your job, often through social activities. So that's a very, very general definition of networking. There's the Business Dictionary definition, creating a group of acquaintances and associates and keeping it active through regular communication for mutual benefit. Networking is based on the question, how can I help, not with what can I get? And this is a very important point. So when we're thinking about networking, we have to think about how can I add value to that person or to that organisation. Quite often it's quite tempting to think about networking and thinking, how can I get something out of this, or thinking it from your perspective. But you have to think about it from the other person's perspective and think, well, why would they help you? So thinking about what can you actually add to that person to add value to them where they want to be able to help you. There is another definition for networking, which is the Balances MB, and their definition is business networking is the process of establishing a mutually benefit relationship with other people and business potential customers or clients. The primary purpose of business networking is to tell others about your business and hopefully turn them into customers. So that's more business sort of networking, and thinking about it as that customer and client relationship as well. And networking really is a relationship. When you think about it being a professional relationship, that relationship has to be maintained. So you have to start off by actually developing it, but then actually maintaining it. So once you have someone as a contact, it'd be quite tempting to think, oh, I've got someone in my contacts. But then you have to think, well, how many times have I actually been in contact with them in the last few months? So thinking about actually, is this a relationship that I'm developing and maintaining? So why is social media and online networking important? Well, I did mention at the start about this concept of the hidden job market and being able to access this. And social media is a useful tool to advance you in your employability journey. So you need to have a clear career goals and consider how you can use this tool to achieve them. It can be used as a research tool for sector and occupational knowledge. So if you're not sure about what opportunities you would like to find, then actually social media is a really great way of researching what jobs are out there and getting some more information about the sector. It's a really useful tool for searching for events and employment opportunities. So lots of social media accounts will actually advertise events and employment opportunities that they have within their company. And it can also be used as a tool to create and develop industry contacts. So again, that comes back to developing and maintaining relationships. And you should be doing that through social media and online networks. Now, as I mentioned, there is this concept of the hidden job market, and I really want to reinforce how important it is about being able to access this hidden job market. So between 60 and 75% of jobs aren't actually advertised. And now that's a huge amount of jobs that are actually out there that you don't actually get to see on job boards. So networking is being able to meet influential people and gather information, not to ask them for a job. So just to be clear, when you're thinking about networking, it's not just going on to social media and finding that person and then asking them for a job. There is a way about going about developing that relationship. Make an appointment with someone influential to find out more about their field of work. Make friends and you'll usually be employed by someone who likes you. So it's again coming back to this concept, it's a relationship that has to be developed and nurtured over time, and that's how you'll make sort of contacts within your particular chosen industry. So a really good starting point is thinking about who is already in your network. So if you actually think about all the different categories of your life and you put yourself in the centre of this using this diagram here, and you can see this as an example. So thinking about who do you have contacts within your university, who's in your family that you already know, and who's on like your current job if you have a current job, previous jobs if you've previously worked, even your friends. And then you can go off in this diagram and then sort of specify that even more. So who do they people know? And then you can do that again, and who do they know? And so all of a sudden you'll realise that you actually have this web of contacts within your network already. One thing to consider though is that if there are specific elements on this chart in which you don't have any contacts, maybe that's an opportunity for you to actually now think about, well, how can I develop contacts within this area? For example, if you don't know anyone in your university at the moment at all, which is obviously quite unlikely if you're at university, but if you don't know any single person, think to yourself, how can I actually develop my networks at university? How can I get involved in what's going on round about me? And the more people you know, the more likelihood is you're going to be able to access this, what we call hidden job market. So really take some time to have a look at this diagram and write down where you think your networks are at the moment. And if there are gaps on there, think about how you're going to develop your networks within this. Okay, so you've probably heard of LinkedIn, but thinking about what is LinkedIn and how can it work for you? LinkedIn essentially is an online CV. It's an online way for you to market and brand yourself to potential employers and people within your network. It's a professional networking community, so it is a community. You can join groups on LinkedIn. You can be part of like your university alumni, which I'll come back to later. So there are ways in which you can become part of this online community, and having a really well put together LinkedIn profile can actually help you become a sort of active member of this online community. It is an excellent tool for introductions and referrals. So, for example, if you have people in your network already that you're already connected to, you can ask them to then maybe refer you on to other people within their network. So it's a really good way of actually building your network and expanding the people that you know. Online networking can then transcend into the actual real world of face-to-face networking. So you might meet someone online and then agree to then meet with them maybe for a coffee, etc. So it can actually come into your real life as well. It's a great way to gain commercial awareness. Now this is a key skill, commercial awareness. It's really important that you develop this. And thinking about how much do you know about the sector that you're going into? How do you know about their competition and where they sit on the sort of political landscape of where they are? So being able to develop that commercial awareness and doing lots of research, not only about the particular company that you're interested in, but also the other companies that feed into that company and their competitors, etc. LinkedIn is also a great research tool for companies and career progression. So you can look at other people's profiles and establish how they got to the job they got to, and you can even connect with them and again ask them more questions. Again, most companies and organisations will have their own LinkedIn page, so you can go onto the LinkedIn page and find out a bit more about the company, but also be kept up to date with current information. So if they have events coming up or special anniversaries or anything like that, which they're currently marketing, then that's something that you want to access. Okay, so when you are building an online LinkedIn profile, it's really important that you create a really good first impression. So when you think about what the first thing the recruiter or employer is going to see, they will most likely see your headshot first, and they will also see your LinkedIn top header line. So when you're thinking about putting a professional photo together, think about what that photograph really says about you. And this is where your own branding comes into play, and thinking about how do I want recruiters and employers to see me? What impression do I want to give off about myself? So research suggests that you are 14 times more likely to get a response if your profile includes a professional looking headshot. So keep those selfies for Facebook. You could choose a photographer and make sure that your photo is actually current. Use a headshot and smile naturally, so you want it to look very natural. Dress for the occasion, so wear appropriate workwear. So whatever sector you're in, make sure that you're obviously dressed for that line of work in your professional photo, and edit your photo and the crop and size. And again, just to reinforce that point, think about what impression you are giving off, because it's the first thing that a recruiter or an employer will see. And one thing that I would just like to make as a point of generally about LinkedIn and what employers can see is that this is an active profile, and recruiters and employers can access this at any moment. So it really is so important that it's kept up to date regularly. So if there's any changes or any changes to even how you look, etc., then that should be updated and reflected in your photograph. Okay, so creating a profile that has impact. Now, I chose Daniel here because this is one of the most successful LinkedIn profiles, and there's a few reasons for that. Daniel sort of stands out because he's put his career path in context by connecting the dots from his youth. So he said about why he's always been interested in this sector. So that really shows passion and commitment to the sector that he's interested in. He also makes it clear what he loves and what he likes to do. So that's really important, as well as being able to convey that on your LinkedIn profile to give the recruiter or the employer the impression that you've really taken time to think about your career aspirations, etc. He balances industry keywords and hard skills with a dose of humility. So he does actually use some sort of more formal language and informal language. He talks about the actual technical skills that he has, but again, there is that element where you feel like you're connecting with him as a human, because he's talking about things that he loves and things he's passionate about, and he talks about his childhood, etc. He also has a few years of experience, yet he's mature enough to take stock of his professional path. Now, that's something that's very important, because it's thinking about, actually, this is where I am now, but this is where I would like to get to. And that shows that actually he's recognising where he currently is, but where he would also like to move on to. And that's something that I think shows a level of maturity, but also shows that he's taken time to think about where he would like to move on to. So when you put your your LinkedIn profile together, think about it as being similar to a CV, and thinking about, how do I want to convey and articulate the skills that I've developed, but how do I want to convey myself and my personality, and give the recruiter and employer a sort of impression of who you are as an individual, and that's what's really going to make you stand out. So I'd recommend having a look at this profile. It's a live profile, and it's one of the ones that is recommended, and just to sort of get an idea of the type of language that Daniel uses in his profile. Okay, so for getting the most out of LinkedIn, I'd recommend that you download the app to receive notifications. This way, it's just a lot easier to actually keep track of what's going on within your LinkedIn and within the LinkedIn community, and you can obviously use it on the go. Remember, the posts that you like and share will be visible on your feed for your contacts to see, so really consider and check the content before posting or liking it. So yes, it's really a good idea to actually start sharing content and posting, but because obviously that will be seen in other people's feeds, and it sort of gets your name and brand out there. But then it's on the other flip side of that is remembering whatever you like or you post, then that's obviously seen by recruiters and employers. And quite often what's quite tempting is, and I'm sure lots of people do this, but actually you really need to think about this, is actually just because you like that particular person or you think they're super professional doesn't mean that you have to like every post that they post. And also it is okay to actually not like some things because actually maybe you don't agree with actually the content. So make sure if they've put a link on their feed and you're going to like it, that you've actually taken the time to go on to that particular post and really read through it and make sure that you are actually liking the actual content of that post. Because it's quite easy to just press like to something, but actually you're not quite sure exactly what it is. So don't be tempted to do that, because by doing that, you're sharing it and putting it on your feed and you're actually endorsing it. So just be careful of that, and really consider the content beforehand. Again, though, on the other side of that, make sure that you are liking and posting just so that you can actually get your name and your brand out there. Another thing that I'd recommend is creating a unique URL for your LinkedIn profile, and this will ensure that actually your LinkedIn profile looks more professional and you've taken time to actually shorten the LinkedIn URL. Now, the reason that this is quite important is that actually then it means it's a lot easier for you to be able to distribute your LinkedIn URL. So you can actually put it on the end of your email signature, or you can put it on the contact section of your CV. And this is just a really good way for employers and recruiters to go from one platform or one medium of communication onto another very easily, especially if the URL has been shortened. So I'd recommend that you do that. Another tip that I mentioned is actually, so once you have your professional photo put together, is actually targeting your headline. Now, what I mean by that is writing actually a headline that is targeted and really taking time to consider what is going to go into your headline. So if you select me, view profile, and select the pencil icon at the top of your profile, go into the edit mode. Replace the text with a short statement as appropriate. Then this could be what you can offer or what you're looking for in terms of work experience. There is a 120 character limit for the headline, so be quite strategic in thinking about how you're going to make the absolute maximum most out of that 120 characters. And keep your headline up to date to reflect your changing experience. So make sure that if you go from student to graduate, that you actually change it to graduate, etc. Because obviously, again, this is a live profile, so you don't get to have really much say in when a recruiter or employer can view your profile. So it has to be up to date all the time. When you target your headline, thinking about if you are a student, saying student at the University of XYZ, etc., isn't probably going to be enough, because there will be lots of students at that university. So thinking about using that 120 character limit for your headline and thinking, how can I reflect myself in the manner, the fashion I want to be seen in. So thinking about who you are and your achievements, potentially you could put in there, or what you're looking to do. So really use that target line strategically as best as possible. When you actually have the LinkedIn app, a really useful tool is to actually use the LinkedIn Find Nearby feature. Now, this is actually a really useful way of networking if you are at a conference or even a career fair or an event. You can have the LinkedIn feature on Bluetooth. So by pressing Activate Bluetooth on your mobile device, tap the My Network, tap Find Nearby at the top of the screen. You may be prompted to allow LinkedIn to connect to your device accessories, which will allow Bluetooth to work with the LinkedIn mobile app. So what this really means is that if you're at a conference and you're actually in a room with say 100 people, then it's a really good way of just connecting with as many people round about you as possible. Which is actually much better than everyone sort of giving out their name and surname and trying to exchange contact information. So it's a really sort of nifty way of being able to access that information easily and add on lots of contacts at any one given time. What I would say though is if you are at a conference and you haven't met those people before, then if you are connecting with people on LinkedIn, make sure that you send them a message and say why you would like to connect with them. People will respond better to that, and also I think it just shows that you're not just pressing add to everyone, that you're actually considering who you're adding, and there's a reason for you adding them. So even if you're not at a conference, this is just a general point. If you are adding people on LinkedIn, it's really important to write a short message to them on the message function just to say, hi there, I would like to connect with you because to do X, Y, and Z, and the reason why. I mentioned earlier that you can use LinkedIn to research career options. So the advanced search is found on the right of the big white box on the top of your LinkedIn homepage. Once you've clicked on the advanced search link, you'll notice there is a range of fields that you can use, and this really is where the magic begins. So you can actually research different career options from using this function. So I'd strongly recommend that you do that, especially if you're at a point in your career at the moment where you're still just exploring what jobs and things are out there and thinking about what jobs you can do. I'd really recommend being able to use that function. So I'm sure most universities will have their own LinkedIn alumni page, so you can search for your University of Alumni on LinkedIn. Now this is a really good way to stay engaged with your university, and you'll also be able to contact other alumni that have been at your university. So once you leave, it's a really nice way of being able to stay in contact. You can also see what the alumni are doing now, what industries they're in. You can filter it into what jobs they're doing, so having a look at what industries and sectors they're in and doing sort of a bit of research into career options within your university alumni pages as well. So I'd strongly recommend that if you're not already on your university LinkedIn alumni, to go ahead and do so. You can also join LinkedIn groups. LinkedIn groups are hubs on LinkedIn which provide a place for professionals in the same industry or with similar interests to share content, find answers, post and view jobs, make business contacts and establish themselves as industry experts. So by going on to the LinkedIn groups and joining and posting on there, that's a really good way of interacting with other professionals within your sector. And it's actually a little bit of, it's more softer networking than actually maybe contacting someone directly through Messenger. So leaving comments underneath and liking and sharing, etc. That's a really good way for you to get noticed and for people to come then onto your page. It also shows recruiters and employers that you're actually actively engaged in what's going on in your sector, and it shows again that you're in the process of building that commercial awareness. So if you're not already on LinkedIn groups, thinking about what LinkedIn groups are out there in the sector, the industry that I'm interested in working in, and thinking about, well, how am I going to join them, and what can I bring to those groups, what knowledge, experience can I bring. And if you are a student, actually you'll have lots of information that you can bring to those groups, because obviously the information that you are provided with at university is changing all the time. So a lot of industry professionals that have maybe been in the sector for many years and actually might have forgotten about some of the things they've learned at university, then you might be able to share some of the things that are on your course currently. So don't think that because you're a student you don't have anything to contribute. I'm sure you'll have lots of information that you can add to different professional groups on LinkedIn. One last point I'd just like to make before we go on to questions is that thinking about your current online digital footprint, and I can't reinforce this point enough, it's really important that you actually take the time to Google yourself and Google your own name and see what is actually on the internet about you currently, because if you are going to be employed, a recruiter or an employer will do this in their recruitment process. They will just Google your name and find out what they can about you essentially. So a really useful exercise is to just quickly take a quick Google search of yourself and see what information's out there. And I'm sure most of you will be absolutely fine, but especially if you've been on social media for quite a length of time now, you maybe be surprised about maybe some photographs and things that are floating about out there of you, so just to keep that in mind. So now we can go on to questions. So if anyone has any questions about online social media and online networking, I'd be quite happy to take the questions now.